Okay, just about ready to start Liberte. It's much later in the day because, well, playing Liberia with my girl right now. But wanted to get started on this during a break. Now, it's kind of hard to figure out what to do. I'm looking at, say, a player's hand, and this is the blue player who's going to go first. And what does he have? He has some things that he wants to hold on to, special cards he doesn't want to play right away. He has a faction division, a couple of white cards, a bunch of blue cards. To me, it feels like he's definitely got to focus on blue. Cannons, they don't matter too much right now. He's got one here. There are a couple available out there. I think what he's going to do is to draw a blue card, the faction card, put it in his hand, or the club, and flip up another card. Now he's allowed to take another one, and he'll take this one. His hand's up to 9, which means if he did this again, I think he has to discard back down to 7. But at this point, it seemed like an idea to kind of delay and draw. There's a lot of chips out there that are, not yet played. Now, something very potent came up. A guy with 3 on the purple. Hey, it's Talleyrand. Who are on the blue, who would have been very valuable from his perspective. But that's okay. He's not unhappy with what he did. He's looking at aiming for that, and he wants to try to improve blue's position because of it. Now, if we look at orange, how does he divide up? His hand looks stronger, much stronger on the white side. He could pick up that other valuable white card. Again, it's early in the status. Does he want to declare what he's doing? Well, maybe. He's going to actually draw a card. And again, it's kind of this, hey, if I start playing my cards and I don't have a full hand, I might be in a position where I can't get the cards that I want that work well together. So I might be having to pick things up from the deck that maybe I don't want all that terribly. Go to purple, who's going next, and everybody's just playing in turn here. Now, he's got a little bit of revolutionary power, which is very pleasing in a way. There's a club there. I could pick that up in a purple. I don't feel like that's that huge a bonus, though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Barrère, who's got power in the north up here, and I'm going to play him. He may not seem like that great a card, but I'm actually going to play him in front of me, keeping him in play in my personal reserve or whatever. I get 2 red tokens that I can place, and doesn't really matter. I'm going to put them in the non-white spaces because I think maybe if I can keep a power base there, it'll last longer. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be the case because if I win these elections, my chips come off the board, right? So that's where I'm sticking on him. And now we come over to the pink player, and obviously I'm not going to be able to play this in this kind of detail in front of everyone throughout the game, but I'll try to catch the major inflection points. Now he's got a lot of blues, kind of geographically separated. There's a good blue card. At this point, I'm looking around for a die because I kind of would like to, I'm going to draw a card no matter what. I'm going to draw that card. That's a useful guy. He might be useful next turn even when the cannons come out. And that's what he's going to do. And so far, we're not seeing a lot of activity going on the board because people are preparing for what they're doing. Over here on yellow. And maybe it'll be worth coming back in detail at another point. He's got some red and some blue. Holdings on both, a lot of power here in this green area. Seems tempting to me to extend his power. That's a nice card. I got to decide where discards go. But I think he's going to play this kind of weaker character, or is he going to draw for more power? He'll play this weaker character, and I'm going to discard him over here to get a blue. And rather than challenge red, that doesn't seem to be a terribly valid object, or purple's red control. That doesn't seem terribly valuable to me. He's going to play for his own power base there. And then we'll move on to green, who's got a couple of cards. And he looks like he has a very strong hold here in the north with the revolt. He has Danton, he has Robespierre. That looks like a strong holding. Now, does he want to play one of them right off the bat? Hard to call. I think what he's going to do is pick up his own flexibility by grabbing a red card. He wants to do these in sequence. I wonder what that was. So that he can grab if another red had come up. But he's going to do that. And now the other red does come up, but it's a little too late for him. All right, well, we'll step away and kind of, I'll play some action, and we'll start seeing what the board develops as. But this was kind of a beginning, just to see how people play a few cards at this point. So after going around the board a second time, players who had been hoarding cards, there's nothing that great out there essentially, but players who had been grabbing cards as their strategy, thinking, okay, I want to have a full hand going into this, are now in a position where they had a large enough hand that they wanted to play. So we had some extension pretty much into empty areas, except interestingly enough, green played here. Now they had to with the character they played, Brissot. He's located here. Jean Din. And by playing there, the reason behind it, which isn't really apparent to everyone else, he could have challenged any of these revolutionaries here, but the actuality is he's more in favor of the revolutionaries and the radicals than he is of the moderates. So he's willing to have a fight between the moderates where he has the advantage now. Now, whether or not he wanted to play a card in an area that would have required a contesting is kind of the questionable thing. But in this case, he certainly did want to, if he was going to play that Brissot card, which he chose to do, he did want to challenge blue rather than red territories, because he's leaning away from blue. Territory is slowly beginning to develop, just placing pieces out, trying to claim what's theirs. It's still easier for the empty places, but we see in cases where somebody has a color that's been heavily hit that they will go and challenge rather than perhaps play elsewhere. Some of the areas may not have good cards for them. Some of the things we're noticing, though, is that people are starting to put out their cards now. We've got, this one. Intention, keep that for next turn if possible. Even more important, this one with its general is almost useless this turn, but he wants to recycle it, and it was a card he kind of wanted to use. Over here, some more high-powered cards, although again, another general. This guy's got the sans-culotte, which allows him, along with a cannon, which allows him to increase the total number of cards that he can keep on his pile of whatever that personal something or other is called, personal display. All right, so we'll go around some more. One thing that's kind of nice, and as we continue on and the board is filling up, there's areas where there's not a lot of conflict or not a lot of action happening. And what I'm seeing is, these historical personages did have areas they came from, no question. And those were kind of the key areas, especially in the case of the most important ones, that supported certain groups. So you're seeing almost a historical growth here of, the more radical up here in the north, grabbing territories with those big cards, and maybe the moderates or Girondian type settled here in kind of the area was historically theirs. It may change as deck B comes out. That may add cards that reflect the changing nature of the politics in the era. All right, so we'll just keep going. Now, after another time around or so, we see the blue pile has gotten very, very small. Basically, someone could wipe this out at any point. Granted, everybody else still gets to play. Oh, and I forgot. This is causing one thing to definitely happen. Just that people want to kind of play their special cards at this point if they're going to play them. And that's exactly what we're going to see here, where a religious problems card is going to be played. To remove a blue block in order to bring green's position into a little bit more power than it was in. But yeah, it looks like it's close to ending. It probably will this round. So people are feeling, okay, I better get my cards out for bidding. There's people with only a couple of cards out. So this guy was in that position. He threw both 1-point cards, but with cannons, which is kind of interesting. He might want to keep them next turn. So it gives him a little bit of opportunity there. Okay, so though a blue tile remains up here, they ran out during the phase, which means that we do move on to the next stage in the turn. After the action phase, that's going to be the battle phase. Well, there are no battles. So now we go on to the elections. Let's do a couple of these just to see how they work out. And then, mainly this will just be not an entirely mechanical action because you've got the bidding by pushing forward and committing one of your cards, but pretty close in terms of the overall thing. There's only 4 or 5 cards in a person's hands. They're not going to contest a lot of elections, and the elections aren't necessarily the key place where you want to commit your card. You want to commit your card for control of the party, where the victory points come in, or a lot of different other options. You don't want to commit your card just over a petty election, I think. We'll see. Okay, so let's take a look at the first one, which is Normandy over here. And that goes purple, or red. They get to keep the red chip. The voting total goes up by 1. And red has won a location. Moving on, Maine is the same situation. There's no possibility of a competition or anything there. Okay, the third one, well, we've got an interesting situation here where blue is going to win the election for Bretagne, but the yellow player gets the token for it. And now, because the token's been removed, it's going to be tied going into next turn. There's going to be a significant royalist discontent there. All right, let's go to another one. Here we've got a competition. Two blue factions. So blue should win this, right? Except they're fighting each other so hard. So now the question is, does anyone want to commit a card? And this actually happens in player order. And here's the thing. Does orange want blue to win? Not terribly. Do they want this point? Not terribly. They're not going to commit. So now we go to yellow. Does yellow want blue to win? They'd like to get this chip. There's no question there. That might end up being important, but it looks like a lot of other people have heavier blue commitments. Of course, I have a blue card. Orange has a blue card too that they may want to get rid of at this point. It's not like they can't discard it elsewhere, but why not use it for something? I have a blue card, but I don't particularly want to play it. So this is going to be a draw. Now, as a draw, it's horrible, because both players lose their chits. Now, orange is kind of cursing themselves. If they had gotten away with their card, they would have won a province. It might be of some value to them, but they don't really want blue to win at all. So they're kind of okay with this. Let's go to the next one. That'll be the 5th province. I think that's up here at Amiens. And again, we have a tie situation. We have the pale blue player who seems to have a mixed view of white and blue. He seems to have played some white markers for some reason. And then we have the radical of the green player. Now here's the thing. Blue has to choose first. Are you committing? Do you care about this? Well, blue has no white cards to commit, so they can't. So now it's up to the green player. Now he's got a lot of cards, a lot of places he's going to have to commit cards. But he's going to commit one. It has to be a red card to win this in order to take the territory. Now he gets this chit. The white chit remains, which is kind of annoying. They would have both gone away otherwise. And red gets another victory point. And I'll continue through these and come back as when we see the finish. So now the election, this first election, is finished, and it's kind of interesting. I thought it was a fight between red and blue, but white managed to pull out a second place finish in it, which is going to be kind of interesting for orange here. Red becomes the government, however. No doubts there. And second is going to be the main opposition. How do the points get aligned, though? That's the question. Because standing right here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 red and 4 red. That means they're tied for the amount of red elections they won, at which point one of them or the other has to put forward a card. Well, he's got no problem putting forward this card. He doesn't mind getting rid of it. But that puts a tough call on this guy. He's got to give up a card he likes, the Danton card. But he's going to do it. It's worth the points. It's a pity because he'd like to recycle it. But in this case, red has taken a double hit. Not only did they remove their pieces off the board, but these extra cards for that to determine who gets first and second place. So that means 5 victory points go over to the green player who played that. And now second place is going to fall to the purple player. And that's worth only 2 victory points. And that's a shame, but he didn't lose anything on the final card play, really. So that works out all right. The only thing he lost was all the presents for getting those votes in place. Now looking at the second place, or on the opposition, that's very clear. Orange obviously has that, and they're going to get 3 victory points, putting them in second place for the turn. Now this is just the first turn, so it's fairly easy to deal with this. There's no other things that happen really. You know, the battles weren't here. There's something else that doesn't happen here. But we're going to start over on the second turn, and it'll be a little fuller. It'll include, you know, the card redraws and stuff like that, where you get to flush your hand and get new things. So that'll be a different flavor. Plus, the victory points determine the player order. So green's going to be forced to go first next turn, whereas the people who didn't collect any points, and that's the point, you don't get any points if you can't get in that election. So all that effort for this turn, some of it's laying groundwork, but if you didn't, if you didn't collect points, you probably have a bigger presence on the board. Unless, of course, you wasted your time tying other people, in which case your pieces just leave the board entirely. Now these are going to go back into the piles, and moreover, these guys are going to be added to the pile, which extends things a little bit. So we can see there's still a lot of blue pieces on there because blue didn't win a lot of elections. It looked like they were doing quite well. They used up all their pieces, but they didn't win enough elections to be able to get either first or second place. However, there still is a decent amount available for play, but the players who are on the board may be the ones who, the people who have stuff on the board want to keep playing blue. They're going to be playing for blue because they want to make what they've got on the board work well. So I think we're going to see a resurgence of blue pieces here. and maybe a heavy drain on them. We'll see how it works out. I'll load this up.